Well, good evening, everyone. This is Keith with Positively Osceola for another one of our Osceola Matters live shows. We brag about, humbly brag about some of the awesome guests that we get to have here in our day shows, our evening shows, and so we're really blessed to have some great folks tonight. A super great guest and a friend of Positively Osceola's, and that is State Representative Kristen Arrrington, Florida House District 43. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Keith. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Glad to have you here. And like I said, I know you're super busy, so for you to take a bit of time and talk to us tonight. And we were kind of chuckling just a few minutes ago because obviously there's a special election going on in St. Cloud, so our eyes were kind of peering to the right and peering to the left while we're trying to focus on what we're doing. So we're going to get this started, and like I said, I don't take it lightly. I know that everything seems like extra busy these days, doesn't it?
Absolutely, especially as soon as things got back to being in person. It seems like every day and every night a lot is popping up, and the weather's starting to get a little bit better. So we're starting to get all those outdoor festivals and stuff coming up as well.
I know I know you're very, super, even before this particular office you're holding, you've always been, very, very active in the community and always busy. You're one of the busy people in the county. And it's almost like we had a staff meeting. It's kind of like we were talking it through and saying, is everything a little more busy, hectic, crazy, or was this what it was before we forgot that we did all this stuff,
It was like this before. It really, really was. I know we've made some of those nice adjustments, like we said, where we can do interviews like this on Zoom. So I think maybe in some ways, maybe it is getting a little bit more busy because we're able to cram a little bit more work and a little bit more meetings by, doing this virtual stuff now.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. All right, well, let's go ahead and make it official. Here we go. Well, again, we officially welcome State Representative Kristen Arrrington, Florida House District 43. It's all the fours. It's just so many consonants from District 43. So again, we're just really glad you're here tonight with us. And I know that we'll get right at it and just ask you to kind of share with what you're doing. I know you were you had your first week of committee meetings and you've got some more coming. So I'm just going to ask you just kind of just describe to us what that was and what's going on right now.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity. Well, we had our first week of committees, and we have 6 weeks of committees before our actual legislative session will begin in January of 2022. So we had our first week, and it was kind of like a little get back into the swing of things. The Capitol is now back open, which when I was there for this last session, it was closed to the public. So it's great to have the Capitol open and have the public coming, and now they're able to give a lot more input. So I got to see a lot of folks in person, which is wonderful after kind of being detached for so long. So our first week I have 5 committees, but only 4 of them met. We did a lot of presentations that we viewed. We didn't actually vote on any legislation. I assume that will be coming up in our next committee weeks. But we also dived into redistricting, which happens once every 10 years. And we take the data from the census, and then we'll reapportion our state seats for the House and the Senate on the redistricting committee I serve on. But this will also happen for congressional seats as well. And we will have those maps drawn, and they should be approved by the end of legislative session, which is March. But I do want to get back a little bit to committee weeks. Next week, I'll be going up for 2 weeks straight. So I'm looking forward to having kind of a real deep dive in session. It's great because also besides committees, when I'm up there, I'm able to meet with folks that know a lot of things about the industry, like I'm talking about to folks about homeowners associations and the problems they have with them. So I talk to attorneys that have maybe written that law in the past. So it's great when I'm up in Tallahassee, not only to do that, but also to take some of those constituent issues from the district and talk to the folks that maybe created the problem to understand, why they did, or that they know how maybe to fix that problem, or, where where there was some unintended consequences with the original legislation, and maybe there's ways we can fix that. So that's one of the things I love the most. I'm a problem solver, so I love meeting with those folks and talking about ways that we can fix some of these issues.
So you brought up a good point, and I hadn't really thought about it. So obviously this is going to be a different dynamic, a different experience for you now because of COVID being in a different place, or our experience with COVID in a different place. So what will this, do you think that that's going to increase the amount of accomplishments that will be able to be, the accomplishments you'll see through the legislature?
No, unfortunately, I think in some ways we probably will see less passed, because a lot of times there's folks that are, for good reasons, maybe stopping bad legislation, or maybe legislation has good intentions, but it needs like some tweaking. So when folks are in the Capitol more, they're probably trying to interfere with that legislation.
Sure.
Whereas when it was closed, it's easier to move things through because a lot of folks weren't there, or they don't hear a buzz with stuff going on. So a lot of times I would hear, right before I go into a committee meeting from someone about something I was going to vote on, and, how the world was on fire and this was horrible legislation. But in a normal cycle, we would have those folks in the Capitol. We'd be talking to them earlier. A lot of times it's something that may be a little issue that we don't know of in a bill, and then we can amend it, or we can talk to the sponsor about it. So I think we'll see how it goes. I'll follow up with you afterwards to see where those numbers at. But I think that we'll actually probably have a little bit less pass.
Well, so let's get right. So let's mention Florida House Bill 229, please.
Great, thank you. I just filed that yesterday, and it was legislation that I had filed last session, and it got through all the committees, but it didn't make it to the House floor because it was not moving in the Senate.
Right.
So to have something pass, it has to move in both chambers, the House and the Senate. So like I said, unfortunately, it was moving in my chamber, but it did not move in the Senate last session. So we've made some tweaks to the bill, and it's just been filed, and I want to tell you just a little bit about it. Currently, what we do for our middle school and high school students is we let them know of the opportunities that are available for dual enrollment and AP opportunities, but we aren't required to let them know about the career and technical pathways that are available to them for internships and apprenticeships. And as you know, Keith, for our area, we have Valencia, we have OTech, we have a lot of opportunities, and not all students know about them. So this legislation would require the schools to let children and also their parents know about these opportunities, but it would also present it in a language that's understandable to them. So for folks that, like when Hurricane Maria happened and were displaced and come here, I mean, some of these technical words, I don't understand them in, my language. So definitely when they're translated, you lose a little bit there. So we're really trying to make sure that students and their parents know all the opportunities that are available to them close to home that aren't the traditional pass.
So how would that communication look as far as how it's going to make its way to those people?
Wonderful. Actually, there's systems already in place, so we wouldn't have to do too much. Currently, middle school students go through online training where they learn about these opportunities, and currently high school students, their parents receive a yearly notification, but the students do not. Right. So this would just kind of extend what already is being done. So the middle school would also offer the career and technical pathways, but also the high school one would let the parents and the students know, which it doesn't know right now, and it would also expand what they're letting them know. So it's just kind of making what we're already doing better in my mind. And it's just kind of one of those things, again, things modernize over time, where they evolve over time. And I think it's just a natural path for us.
That's interesting. I just was, myself and a few other people were able to have lunch with Dr. Pace last week. And, there seems to be quite often conversations about the pipelines, whether it be a construction pipeline, medical pipeline, all those technical pipelines they're talking about. And so I know there's energy from that point. And if you speak to Dr. Polinsky, you hear energy from that end. So what you're saying is you're going to make sure this bill would make sure that there'd be connectivity and that's not a broken link. Then is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And not all areas have someone as wonderful as Dr. Pace,
right,
Dr. Polinsky, where they know about these opportunities, or things might change over time. So I just want to make sure that these are in place for everyone. But I just met with Dr. Polinsky yesterday as well in Valencia, and I mean, they're just so amazing. They're doing great with their numbers now, but they're always looking at ways to improve that and always to make sure that students know about the opportunities, because we have so many great opportunities, and it's unfortunate that they're not all taken advantage of.
Well, that makes sense to me. When you hear it, you're like, that's a good thing. I think that's a good one. So good luck with that. And so that is, of course, now is that the same? So that is also Senate Bill 400 from Senator Randolph Bracy. Is he who also presented that bill, sponsored that bill last year?
Absolutely. It was actually his original idea, but then I tweaked it a little bit to include the language aspect. And then also I spoke with the committee staff on what the current statutes were. And then we tweaked it even a little bit more. So we went with the current system, just making it a little bit better. So it's kind of something that's evolved along the way that we've all had a great part of. So I'm hopeful that since it's an easy bipartisan issue, it doesn't have any fiscal impact. I'm really looking forward to us moving it forward this year.
Good for you. Good luck to you on that. Honestly, best of luck. Like I said, I love hearing the common sense things coming out. It's great. So what else would you like to share with us that anything that took place in the first week, and what your expectations would be for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. In my professions and public health care meeting, we talked a lot about infant mortality. This last session, we expanded Medicaid for new mothers for them to have one more year of continued services because we had a lot of, unfortunately, mothers that were passing away.
Right.
So now we are luckily looking at that infant mortality rate and what we need to do to get those numbers down. And unfortunately, when you look at African American babies, their deaths are twice as high as white babies. So there's definitely some help that we can do there. And I'm looking forward to see what we're going to do with that this next week. We're going to be talking more about it. Also, in my infrastructure and tourism appropriations meeting, we kind of just got more of agency updates and what they're looking for their budget. One of the things that's really great that they're doing is looking at retaining and treating their Florida highway patrol officers better. Their salaries and their incentives are not good, as you can imagine. And so a lot of times we lose them to other areas, and their budget works different than counties do. So they're looking at ways to raise their wages and incentivize that. So that was something that was really excited to see come forward because, we keep losing a lot of great folks, and same thing with law enforcement. It's hard to recruit folks for that business right now. And then the other one that was really exciting is the redistricting committee that I talked a little bit about, and that we do every 10 years. And that's really exciting for someone who loves statistics and loves data. And, we get to dive in at it. And it's a really neat website called floridaredistricting.gov. And you can also go on there and see like the maps from the other years, what the layout was for congressional seats, Senate seats, and state seats, what the populations were and how they changed, which is really, really interesting. And also individuals can submit maps themselves, which the committee will see. And it's a really really easy website to read. It talks about the statutes. It talks about what we're required to do because we have all kinds of constitutional issues that we have to be careful of. So we want to make sure that we are not in courts like we are previous years, and hope that we get this approved and done by March. But what will happen is my district number will probably change. So don't worry if you mess up 43 sometimes, Keith. It'll probably be some totally different number.
I would never.
But the interesting thing is Osceola is the largest growing county from the census. So myself and Representative Hawkins, both of us will probably lose some parts of our district. Also, Senator Torres, who represents Osceola, his was the largest growing Senate district. And then Darren Soto's congressional seat was the largest growing congressional district. So Osceola, as we know, since we're here, has had extreme growth. So it's going to be interesting to see, what we come up with the maps for that. And we'll be meeting this next week. And I hope we'll get a little bit more into, what that data means and how those drawings go.
And so you mentioned, and I was going to ask you this. So you mentioned it's based on, obviously it's based, I guess, that's where the 10-year span comes in. It's reflective of what the data shows from census, correct?
Absolutely. And then we have all laws that we're supposed to, follow as well, that we have to make sure that there's no gerrymandering going on. We're not supposed to favor a political party. It's interesting when you look at parts of the lake now with currently Representative Hawkins' district in mind is because we couldn't split the lake, he has to have the lake and both sides and the areas around it. And some of those things that I didn't realize before. So we just have to be careful. There's very interesting rules that we have to follow to make sure that we're not breaking up stuff along the way. So I'm sure we'll get a first batch of maps, but there'll be a lot of evolution along the way. There's a lot of groups that are involved to make sure things are fair. And so it's a really exciting process, like I said, since it only happens every 10 years. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of it, and look forward to sharing that data with you all and sharing it on social media.
Please. As you were saying that, I'm thinking, I'm sure there are states and I'm sure there are counties and districts in this country that are not changing rapidly. This is not one of those scenarios. We are going to consistently change, which I am excited about. My wife and I love the fact that we are in a very fluid place where with such a mixture of different cultures and backgrounds. And I talk to my son about that all the time. He's in school, and so many of the humanities courses he's taking are looking at different cultures, and it's exciting to be able to talk about it. So that's how we are. So let me ask you this: before you were elected, certainly you had a vision, an expectation of what your position would be like, and aside from the obvious COVID effect of last year. So how is it in comparison to what you thought you would be experiencing as a representative from Florida, District 43?
Well, thank you. Well, in a lot of ways, to be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect. I had a lot of advice from folks, or I had heard from people, but I really went up to Tallahassee with just open mind and open eyes, and really tried to learn and absorb as much as I can. And it had some pros and cons during COVID because we didn't have a lot of folks inside, so I didn't get to meet with a lot of folks. At the same time, it was nice because we didn't have a lot of distractions as well. So we were able to, dive in on certain issues and, really get to know staff and, find our way around. So, a lot of people ask, well, how is it different than you expected? But I have to be honest, I didn't know what to expect at all, but I love it and enjoy it more than I ever imagined that I would. It's been a really, really great part to be part of the process and be a part of the policy making. I was definitely worried and hesitant as being a Democrat freshman coming in and being the minority party. But there's so many bipartisan issues, and there's so many things that we all can agree on, like my education bill I was just speaking of, that there's a lot of common ground and a lot of good folks up there that want good things. And so some of those things that I thought were going to be difficult were not. So that was a pleasant surprise.
So let me ask you this, and that's all good to hear. I've got to think it's got to be quite the buzz when you get there. The synergy between all the individuals, specifically this year, even more. But let me flip it the other direction. So I have to think that there are a lot of folks in your district and throughout the county and throughout the state that I think sometimes we watch and we think that's our job as citizens, just to simply watch and see what's getting done in Tallahassee, when in reality, I'm sure you would like your constituents to reach out to you, to speak to you and say, hey, this is on my mind. Obviously the semantics of it, the word being representative. I've got to believe that you would much more enjoy having the constituents say, hey, I know you're a representative. Would you listen to my story about this? Am I correct in saying that would make it would be just much more robust for you?
Absolutely. And that's been another problem with COVID, meeting folks in the district. But what I was really surprised about is I did a survey recently that I emailed out and I had on social media with an ad, and we had about 300 people that participated in the survey. And it was a real quick one, rating, 1 to 5 on some of the key issues like affordable housing and education and jobs. But then there was also blanks where you could put your own ideas. And we had probably about 240 folks that replied with their own ideas. And we're closing that survey out Friday. But that's really great because it gives such a snapshot on, if you do polling, that's a good sampling. And also it really touches me that so many folks wanted to take those moments to make sure that their thoughts and their opinions were heard. And so I love that. And that's probably one of the saddest things about COVID is not getting to see people in person. Like I said, I got to see Dr. Polinsky yesterday. I went to the chamber and saw John and Daniel there. And I got to see a lot of people in person. I was like, gosh, this is, just so much what I love. And I had a constituent come from Poinciana. She drove, right in the middle of traffic time, 30 minutes to come see me. And, we had a great meeting. And that's the stuff that I do love. So I really do miss that during COVID. And, when I'm up in Tallahassee, I don't get to meet with the constituents in the district. So that's when it's a great time to do Zoom. So y'all can still reach out to our office. Carla will set up a Zoom, or if you have a constituent issue, she's great. She's there all the time. And, she handles that and holds down the fort while Eleanor and I are up in Tallahassee.
Very cool. And I'll put that contact back in there again at the bottom of the screen right now. So folks reaching out to you through that email will hear back, and then they can actually communicate with you, whether you're in Tallahassee, obviously, or you're home. correct?
Absolutely.
Great. Again, I know it's getting up there in time. I just wanted to say thanks again. I know I said at the beginning, I do know how busy you are, and the days, I know they're 24 hours, but they just don't seem it. And so we do really appreciate you coming. One of the things that, you and I mentioned before we started that might want to put a little, show a quick video that would be encouraging to the community. Okay with that?
Please. Absolutely. Thanks.
Here we go.
Floridians are fighting back.
We are coming together to do our part.
Getting a vaccine can protect not only you, but your loved ones too.
It's easy,
It's safe,
and it's effective.
It doesn't matter where you live.
Or what you do for a living.
If you are eligible to receive a vaccine, there's a vaccine available for you.
As we get back to normal,
Let's do this together.
Good commercial.
Great one. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Glad to. We actually had Dr. Antonio Crespo on last week from Orlando Health, and he is a number of different titles, but he basically is one of the leaders in infectious disease. And so the show was about COVID-19, and what we really talked about was, if somebody if anybody has a question at this point, reach out to your physician, reach out to somebody in the healthcare world and ask that question, because it is so important these days. So, but he was great. He had such knowledge, and we are just really excited to have him on, just as we are to have you on tonight. So again, I thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Keith. Anytime. I would love to come back.
Yes. So as busy as life is, would you be okay if we were to reach out to your office and get this on a consistent schedule based upon what you're doing up in Tallahassee?
Absolutely. I'd love to. And even if I'm up in Tallahassee, I can obviously do this virtually with no problem at all.
Very cool. All right. Well, I thank you, and it's been a joy to have you on tonight.
Thanks, Keith. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, again, this is Keith with Positively Osceola, along with State Representative Kristen Arrrington, Florida House District 43. Together, we're making a positive difference in and around Osceola County. Thanks.